Many people have a huge number of ideas, getting involved in running the world, realizing themselves in all sorts of shady dealings, and having enormous amounts of money. But you need to understand one thing: this will come back to you sooner or later, either in your next life or in this very incarnation. Either they will suffer from illnesses, endure hardships, lack happiness, and not have loved ones by their side, but in exchange, they might receive, for example, financial gain. But it is possible to be harmonious, to have health, to have love, to have money, to have everything you can imagine, and at the same time be in harmony with the world around you.
Hello, friends. This is another hot summer episode from the studio in Dubai, where there's stage smoke, atmosphere, and some awesome guys: Alexander Kukharonok, Alexey Kapustin, Valery, Yakubtsevich. These guys are here. We're about to start. This is a legendary super episode that is at the same time about nothing and about everything all at once. Well, Lesha, since you wanted to joke around and set up this kind of adventure, here are some questions for you. What is the meaning of existence anyway? Oh, yes.
Well, nowadays we all know how to use and truly love using the internet. You can easily find a huge amount of different and interesting information there. Some people say that you should, there's this guy who recently popped up on TikTok. He shows up from time to time who says that you shouldn't think about anything at all. Others say the opposite, that you need to take action. Everyone says something different, but in my view, you need to focus on yourself. Focus on yourself, because if you don't understand yourself, if you don't understand how the universe works and your place in it, then it's unlikely you'll achieve any real results. Well, that's my opinion. What do you think?
I think that every person should shape and assemble themselves into what is commonly called a personality. You know how people say, oh, this person, well, he's a real personality, but another one is kind of faceless, you know, kind of gray maybe. A third one orange, for example. And in general, the question of what a personality is, to me, seems very broad, but it also seems simple. The word personality comes up, a label, as if I associate myself with it, right? There's an association with this word, but to me, it's a very broad and vague concept, one you could dig into a bit if you wanted to explain it.
What is personality? Actually, the question about the meaning of life is really interesting because at one point, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I got really hung up on it. It was just at 16 years old that I had this awakening. It was at 16 that I had this awakening, and for me it was a very crisis-ridden question. Because when I realized that I didn't understand what the meaning of life was or how to live, that's how it was, and I really went through a ton of literature. It seemed to me that philosophers, psychologists, and others should have already answered this question clearly after so many years of the world's existence. I specifically read all sorts of esoteric literature. No one had any answers. Freud, for example, says the meaning is in sex. That's it. Everyone just wants sex, basically. Then someone else says this, someone else says that. You listen to Priestwell, I listen to different ones, and so on. I found a book by a very interesting person, Viktor Frankl. Well, maybe some of you have heard of him. This is a man who lived in Auschwitz. He lived well. He was there at one time, went through all those Jewish concentration camps, saw a lot of death. And he wrote a book about it, about how he got out of there. And the whole time he was in the camps, he kept thinking that when he got out, he would write a book about the meaning of life. And thanks to the fact that this essentially became his purpose, he survived, got out, and went on to create his own major method, which became very well known around the world. So I think that having some kind of meaning in life, some personal meaning, or let's say a global goal, allows a person to move mountains, get through enormous crises, and in general, shapes one's personality. Because if a person doesn't have this kind of understanding, and most people don't, they break at the very first opportunity.
And what was his number type?
Oh, I actually didn't check that, by the way. It was interesting.
Say it again.
Viktor Frankl. Let's look it up. That's interesting.
I think everyone's meaning of life will be different.
Of course, he was a psychiatrist, right?
Yes.
Taking into account, taking into account the level of evolutionary development. That is, if a person receives some information or encounters something they have to go through, they will talk about it, share it, and carry it forward. Actually, probably considering that we work with numbers, each person well, we understand that there is a certain purpose for which they came. If there is one. But what if, as many people say, all of this is just an illusion?
That's simply a thing.
Well then, what was it created for? That's the question.
Yeah. And who controls it, or who created it? Maybe...
In our system, we ask 4 questions. What do I want? Well, actually, the word want is not the right one to use. You need to use need or not. Then when? There should be a date. The third question, for what purpose? That's the question, right? So if this is an illusion, then for what purpose? If there's a meaning to life, then for what? For the sake of what? So if you look at it this way, any action is a form of tension, right? And all religions, for example, say that the person should be free. That means there shouldn't be any tension. And if there shouldn't be any tension,
then it turns out that everything happens automatically without taking our actions into account. In that case, maybe there should be a fifth question. How do you use this? Maybe. Because if by answering these questions you come to the option, for example, that well, so you answered for yourself what, when, for what purpose, and now you've gotten something, here it is, you have it, right? And then how do you use it? Well, for example, I started thinking about it.
so look, when we set goals, that is, we always talk about the need to plan everything properly. I mean, how can we act if we don't understand the sequence of steps? These are the steps we take in order to climb a certain mountain. Okay, we've climbed the mountain. What next?
Well, we've looked out from the top of this mountain.
Right? I'm on the mountain. We've created the numerology system, the project 2, and we're talking about it. What comes next? All right. What comes next? People receive this information. We nurture them. We work through the 3, 6, 9 matrix. So it's about passing on information leading to success and service.
You help them climb the mountain as well.
What next? Question.
Well, these people have climbed the mountain too. The mountain becomes narrower without a peak. It becomes flat.
All right. So what's next? In my opinion, so maybe we need to set some goals that don't really have any,
An end.
where that don't really have any. So it's like life. It's just like that, right? A lot of people say you're instantly connected to everything and everything is instantly connected to you.
It is 100% true.
100%. Then the question arises, what should people do? Should they strain themselves? Or should they just let go of everything and let it all happen on its own?
It seems to me that the point is that everyone strives for balance, but in the end, that balance needs to be thrown off. So basically, you create something, you form a peak. Just like with the mountain, with the rock, as we just discussed. And then you bring other people up to that same level through teaching. You give something to people, they grow as well. And at some point, they rise up to your level, for example, if you don't build.
So what do you call this ascent up the mountain?
Hacking?
Evolution.
Evolution.
The evolution of a person. A person evolves, gains new knowledge, but knowledge brings new opportunities, right? These opportunities lead to some kind of result. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So people need to khera in order to evolve. What else do they need besides development and understanding the sequence of actions? What is included in this sequence of actions? Let's think about it.
Well, I think first of all, you need some kind of direction. Someone has to show you where to go. Or you set that direction for yourself and you have enough.
How do you set it? So you probably need to understand your own movement first. That is, who am I? Why did I come here? And where should I go?
You've walked the path. So in principle, you can now show how to manage that path.
All right. So what else should be inside this path? What is it that people need to be very clearly aware of? What is really important to pay attention to during this evolution? Or rather, without what can this evolution not happen? What do you think?
Well, without knowledge and analysis.
Without understanding yourself, meaning your physical body. The physical body is fundamental knowledge. That is, when you understand well, what I realized in the process of working with people and from my own experiences, when you start to understand your body, start to befriend it, begin to take care of it, to heal it on your own, learning to work with it without medication, understanding that it is a mechanism that is built according to certain principles and laws and with which you can interact. And in fact, everything genius is actually very simple, right? So this is the foundation. Before you move on to spiritual development, if you don't understand your body and don't have the ability to take care of it and work with it, everything else is just an illusion, in my opinion. If the viewers agree with me, let them say so. Put a plus or minus in the chat. You could say that the human body has been studied about as much as outer space, right? In other words, hardly at all, maybe 10%. Exactly, yes. Because you see, modern medicine, I don't think against it, but well, it often can't really cure people. Like, I don't know, a lingering runny nose, or when someone can't hear well in one ear, or something else like that. But it turns out there are completely different, very simple remedies, super simple, that can eliminate these seemingly pathological problems in just 1, 2, or 3 sessions. I don't know. People just don't know about them because honestly, they know their own bodies about, as well as they know outer space. Can you imagine, or maybe someone has created an illusion so that people wouldn't figure this out. Because as soon as a person understands themselves, understands that this is a mechanism either way, did you know that in the old days it was believed that if someone got sick, it meant they had sinned somewhere? Yes. And people only got sick right before living this life in old age. Well, of course, back then the food was different, nature was different, and so on and so forth. Or so they claim, but in reality, development used to go not so much in a technological direction, but rather in a spiritual direction. People understood the body, understood how to work with it, work with energies, and could sense what that was. So it turns out that the physical aspect is just the first stage of development. Everyone talks about development, right? You need to develop, you need to understand how to build a business and so on. But what is development? Development, first and foremost, in my opinion, is understanding yourself and your own body. The physical aspect is the foundation. For example, 147 can be attributed to the very first level of the matrix zone, 4-7. Yes, those numbers. What is that? It's the understanding of yourself and your body. The body has a certain frequency of vibrational oscillation. An organ pulses, a cell vibrates, right? We know today that the higher the frequency of vibration, the more the society around you either adapts to these vibrations or you adapt to them, right? So if you drink alcohol, don't take care of yourself and lead a careless lifestyle, then naturally your environment will be the same. If you practice discipline, exercise, we can see people who go to the gym and do sports. So what happens then? They tend to be more organized, more successful. That's a fact. So accordingly, it means they live on a completely different frequency. Then if you add spiritual development to that, yes, the frequency of actions, intentions, understanding, then we see that these people also have a financial component. We see a completely different level, right?
Yes.
And we can also see how they fall from there, right? Or on the contrary, they suddenly soar to such a level that no one could have even imagined. So how does this work?
It seems to me that the main problem in general is that just like in healthcare, for example, you've probably noticed that doctors have split into categories. And because of this, people have stopped perceiving themselves as a whole. So, for example, they treat just the ear or just the nose.
Left nostrils.
Yes. And as a whole, people no longer perceive themselves that way, as if their ear could hurt because of some other organ or something else somewhere.
It's just that simple pills appeared, people just go and take them. And that's why Elisha says that in the past, people knew how to heal themselves with these simple techniques because there were no pills. You couldn't just go to the pharmacy and buy them.
So is the modern world and knowledge too. The same thing happened with this. Everyone started talking about something specific, and as people absorb this, they stopped thinking in a holistic way.
It became fragmented.
And those people who can put it all together?
By the left nostril and by the right. If a left nostril specialist in America gets into the right one, they lose their license.
We even know this from Twix. From the bars, there's a factory that makes right Twix bars, and there's a factory that makes left Twix bars. Each has different masters. They argue endlessly.
So it turns into this kind of chaos, you know? No matter where we look, wherever we dig, there's chaos everywhere. In reality, the entire universe is harmonious. The human body is harmonious. Relationships should also be harmonious, right? Understanding all of this also has certain vibrations, structures, and so on and so forth. So development, I've always searched, studying different mathematicians, physicists, listening to lectures. And for 6 years, I studied a lot of interesting things in religion as well. I've always wanted to understand, where is the truth? How is this world structured? What is development? How do you develop? I mean, damn, coming from a simple family, you want to earn money. You want this.
Everyone has these questions as always.
You want a car, you want a beautiful girlfriend or wife. You just want them to be cool.
To make something of yourself.
Yes, what is development? As far as I understand at this point, development is impossible without understanding your own body. Because you can't reach a certain quality level without a healthy, normal body. That's the foundation. There are a lot of millionaires who are sick, you know?
Yeah, I think most of them are. Well, understanding is very different.
When they reach that level, they get access to top specialists. But they reach that result without taking care of their bodies, right? They do?
They do.
They do. So it turns out that taking care of your physical body doesn't well. It's not that important for becoming successful, right?
It seems like that's the case.
It seems like that's the case, but we're talking about harmony and quality, aren't we? We all understand that when we're young, we're developing, doing things, running around, working on business. Some things work out, some things don't. We make money. But we're talking about harmony, right? Meaning we started our journey and finished it properly without suffering in old age, correct? Earning money in a way that won't bring us any problems or punishments, neither physical nor the loss of that pleasure we've achieved. So we're talking about harmony. Our goal is to convey to people that the foundation is the body. Taking care of yourself requires discipline and is very hard work. Controlling yourself is the hardest thing because today I want this, then I want that, and then something else, right? That is, by working on your physical body, taking care of your physical body includes nutrition, exercise, and purity of intention. That is also part of the physical aspect. But how can you have pure intentions if your whole body is sick? A congested liver, a liver full of toxins, leads to inadequate thinking.
Absolutely. The brain simply doesn't have time to engage in reflection or any kind of noble high-frequency vibrations when it's preoccupied. What's going on here? It says, okay, it seems like everything's fine up here in the brain, but down here.
People whose physical health is suffering are constantly apathetic. Everything is always bad for them. They're always dissatisfied.
They have no energy.
No energy. And where would it come from? If all the blood is just flying around, those clumped up small vessels are clogged, the body is simply, well, it's not functioning properly. It can't work. Nothing is being supplied with blood. Look at people who take care of themselves. I mean, even at an older age, they look really cool and great. After all, everyone wants to grow old without pain. But what we see is that from the age of 25, there are already cases of prostatitis, problems with the genitourinary system, and every third or fourth person in the world is already suffering from cancer.
The skin
looks bad. It's all covered in pimples. In other words, there's no self-awareness. Everyone is chasing after things, after money, and they think that's where happiness lies. Show me, I've met a huge number of millionaires and wealthy people in my life who are absolute lunatics, just terrible lunatics, and money hasn't brought them any pleasure at all. Why? Because there's no end. They're all in a terrible state. That's why they're crazy.
They didn't look at life as a long-distance journey, I think,
and they only start taking care of themselves when it's already too late. That's why the first stage of development is understanding your own body, taking care of yourself. It brings you to a different, higher quality of vibration. These higher quality vibrations will give you the ability to perceive information on a completely different, higher level. Accordingly, receiving more refined and higher quality information gives you the opportunity to act and experience events on a higher level as well. But at the same time, you need to apply purity. That is purity of intention. Money is not a consequence. Money is not the result. Money cannot be the goal. Action, so money is a consequence of your activity, of your results. But the result is different for everyone. Some people are focused on service in their work. Some are focused on being the reason for other people's success. Some are focused on sharing information and writing books. Some on creativity. Some on something else. So what is everyone fixated on?
On the final result?
On finances. And everyone looks at any activity. How many people have started doing numerology, chasing only money, and nothing works out? How many people are in sales not realizing that they should actually be mentors in schools?
I know a lot of creative people who do things like design, editing, video shooting, but they just burn out in 3 or 4 months when they realize, where's the money?
Where's the money?
Where's the money? There should be. I've already done so much.
Why? Because it's about the purity of intention. Once again, in our club, guys, we have a really great specialist in the field of spiritual development and understanding the structure of the universe. His name is Dima. He explains, the first thing is the purity of your intention. That is, when you set out to do something, how pure and necessary is it for this world? How much does it align with who you are? And is it really your area of expertise? That's what you need to pay attention to, not just go somewhere because someone else is making money there or someone else is successful and you want the same. That is me, Valery, Sasha, we do exactly what you see and observe. We do this because it's our area of expertise. We understood that and we started working in this field. In other words, this is what we came into this world to do. That is to refine systems and share them with the world to provide people with sincere, honest, and truthful information. Money is a consequence of our activity. And the more people understand is that everyone has their own area of expertise, that each person is meant for a specific purpose, but without, first, understanding themselves, and second, keeping their body in a healthy state. Second is understanding your own unique path and personal self-fulfillment in the direction that well, rather for which you originally came, having only a pure mind and pure intentions. That is, for some people, it's helping others. For some, it's service. For others, it's expanding what they encounter and experience. Only purity, integrity, and honesty make success possible. Many people have a huge number of ideas being involved in managing the world as a whole. They find fulfillment in some unclear, shady dealings while having enormous amounts of money. But you need to truly understand one important thing. This will inevitably come back around sooner or later, either in the next life or even in this very incarnation. Either they will eventually get sick, suffer in some way, lack true happiness, or have no loved ones by their side, but in exchange, for example, they might receive money or material wealth. But it is possible to be harmonious, to have health, to have love, to have money, to have everything you can imagine, and at the same time be in harmony with the world around you. This is what people need to understand. And as soon as they change their way of thinking, stop chasing after money, and start realizing themselves as individuals, understanding their own bodies, understanding who is around them. That is to be harmonious without straining anything, without envy, without scheming, without expecting. But first and foremost, focusing on yourself, then success will come to them, to everyone.
I think a small sign for people who are starting to do something and are truly pursuing good intentions and want to reach money could be this. I think it's a small sign, but as I understand it, when you do something for a long time and you feel comfortable with it, you feel comfortable being alone with yourself while doing it. And that's a small sign that,
it might be your path.
yes, if you also get paid for it. And all of this gives you a sense of peace and comfort, and you can be alone with it for a long time. That's how you feel. So maybe it's a small sign, but it could mean that you've found a bit of that harmony, and at the same time, nothing hurts. You're not just sitting there like you. In other words, you look good, people aren't avoiding you or stepping away from you, right? So this is a small signal that this is exactly the spot you need to keep pressing on. That's just purely as...
I want people to understand that development is about understanding the structure of the universe. Your personal result is the purity of your intentions and understanding your own path. That's it. Money is a consequence of your activity. It can never in any way be the goal. If you are being cunning somewhere, coming up with something and think that it won't come back to bite you sooner or later, that's a mistake. It definitely will.
Understood?
Either it will set you back, push you backwards, or it might just reset you completely so that you realize it and start over.
I believe that a person needs an action algorithm. And Lesha is right. You need to start with your body first. When we first recorded, the detox course, the course for restoring the body in general, really great course, which is basically the foundation of everything, really. Basically, if you want to get rid of your medicine cabinet, like I did, for example, for 3 years completely out of my life and so on, that's awesome. And when I went through this course myself, I found it really funny to watch people who are chasing after biohacking, trying to boost their brains with all sorts of extra stimulants, coming up with not mushrooms, and other supplements. Honestly, it's just scary to look at them, and then they end up with all these pimples. In short, there's nothing cooler in terms of biohacking than simply cleansing your body of everything that overloads it. And then your brain will start working in a way that those guys in Silicon Valley couldn't even dream of. Unfortunately, they just either don't know about these methods. We recommend that they start by taking our course. So yeah, the body start with the body, at least do a full cleanse of your system. And then it would be really great to truly understand your purpose, your path, your innate qualities, and the qualities of the people around you. That, of course, is KEYTO. So we have the system of our body, and we have KEYTO. This is ideally a basic professional school, a book, a KEYTO course. That's it. And just watch videos, learn, and take something useful for yourself. What suits you, that means it's yours. It's information that perhaps you once knew, and now it's coming to you through us. So this is the path where, I don't know, in just 6 months, a person can grow tenfold if they at least start with this.
Friends, this was an episode about nothing and everything at the same time. All genius is simple. All that is simple is genius. Alexey Kapustin, Valery Yakubtsevich, Alexander Kukharonok, thank you for watching this wonderful episode. I hope you didn't understand anything, but still learned something.
Interesting.
Interesting, yes. Subscribe, like, and comment. That's all from us. We continue our journey in Dubai. Thank you for your support. Have a good evening, day, wherever you are. Bye.